There are now more than 20,000 men and women in the region working around the clock to contain and clean up the oil. We've authorized more than 17,000 National Guard members to respond across 4 states. More than 1,700 vessels are currently aiding in the response and will ensure that any and all responsible means of containing this leak are pursued as we await the completion of the 2 relief wells.
Plenty of politics in addition to oil is contained as we reach Plan H or I.
This is Top Line, and I'm David Wright with Rick Klein, and among our topics today, oil investigation. President Obama there with the bipartisan heads of the new commission that's going to be investigating the oil spill. I guess the big question is, will they be done with their investigation before they plug the hole?
Indeed. Oh, that's funny. It's funny that you mentioned it that way, because we know that they're aggressive about getting to the investigations, about getting to all these, but there are other issues that still have to get worked out, and all these things are going on in parallel. You know, you're going to have investigations going on at the same time that that everything is still trying to work in the Gulf to try to figure things out. It is Election Day, and therefore Parker Griffith can't lose. That is our second top line, and 3 different states have primaries today. The most intriguing race involves Parker Griffith in Alabama. He is the former Democrat turned Republican congressman, sort of the reverse Arlen Specter, who gets to see whether that worked out for him today in the Republican primary. Very good chance that he goes down. And David, if he goes down, it's because he used to be a Democrat. Now he's a Republican. He tries to avoid
the reverse of Arlen Specter.
Exactly right. And it's just very interesting because a number of incumbents today are going to have those kind of tough races. Republicans, we know in a year like this, not necessarily any better off than Democrats.
Another top line today, cautious response. The Obama administration has yet to offer one word of criticism after Israel raided that flotilla of relief ships headed for Gaza. This as Benjamin Netanyahu was supposed to come to the White House today for a meeting. What will the White House response be in the end? And will that complicate the efforts to produce a Mideast peace?
This was a tricky situation before this happened. The White House has struggled with this relationship with Israel. We've seen the Obama team come in and try to do things a little bit differently and realize in a lot of those cases that things didn't work out quite like they expected. Now it puts even more pressure on the administration with their action, because there's really, the U.S. is almost alone in the world community in standing foursquare.
Criticism of Israel for this.
Exactly right. And finally, FLOTUS Power. Don't call it a campaign event, but First Lady Michelle Obama is in Nevada today for a women's summit and for an event on her Get Moving program. And just so happens that the Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, is from Nevada, and he'll be there at those events. He's locked in a tight re-election campaign. Again, this is not technically a political event, but these are good pictures if you're Harry Reid, and you'll see certainly the most popular Obama out there today.
Absolutely.
Well, we wanted to begin with Tom Campbell, a Republican candidate for Senate, and we may just get to him. But in the meantime, we're joined by Ann Kornblut of the Washington Post, who covers the White House for the Post. And I want to start with the wacky day that you had yesterday, Ann, because you got to actually spend a day in the Obama bubble. We have a little bit of picture from the event yesterday. Take a look at this.
So I'd ask everybody to very calmly move back to your cars. I'm going to move back to mine. We will wait to make sure that the thunder has passed. A little bit of rain doesn't hurt anybody, but we don't want anybody being struck by lightning, all right?
Outdoor church festivals usually have a rain plan, right? This was like flying by the seat of their pants yesterday.
Unbelievable. I never thought I would have the commander-in-chief telling me to take cover at a big event like that on Memorial Day. Yeah, it was really something. We were off just to the side of the footage you just saw under a tent, even more soaked, I think, than the president, and we finally took off our shoes and ran for the motorcade barefoot. The people we really felt for, apart from the president, who obviously spent all day trying to figure out how to celebrate Memorial Day after that, were the Secret Service agents, because they were in their suits, in all their gear, drenched through. And when they got back on Air Force One later, they all really needed a cup of coffee.
Well, despite having what must have been a soggy laptop and BlackBerry, your pool reports were very entertaining.
Thank you.
I have to say that I spent the day at Arlington National Cemetery, and I didn't see President Obama there. Do you think that was short-sighted of him?
And he's come under some criticism from veterans for it. Full disclosure, my whole family is buried at Arlington, so I'm very partial to the services that go on there on Memorial Day. But it really is a presidential day. It's a great tradition to go, and it's a great opportunity to go give a speech. And the cemetery he went to was lovely, but it was nothing compared to Arlington and what that is on Memorial Day. I do think the mishaps from yesterday notwithstanding, they will rethink that next year. It's an unnecessary way of provoking veterans.
Of course, we can have some fun with what happened yesterday with the rain and the way that prompts some scrambling. But it's just been one storm after another for this White House, and they're dealing with the issue in the Gulf Coast. We saw the president from a few minutes ago talking about this investigation that's going on. We've got Eric Holder going down to the region. It seems like there's more of a sense of urgency 40-plus days into this from the White House, but they've really lost control of the storyline.
Yeah, they really have. And how much more urgency can they have? Every few days they declare a new sense of urgency, and they haven't yet been able to either separate from BP or get their arms around it. I think the real problem has been their reliance on BP, that they need them and they can't fully distance themselves from them. They also are going to investigate them, and trying to work these two tracks has really complicated their message, in addition to having many agency heads out all at the same time talking with different storylines. So they're trying now to, give off the sense of urgency, to consolidate their message, but you're right, they haven't succeeded so far.
What about the situation in the Mediterranean with that relief flotilla headed for Gaza? How does that complicate the administration's efforts to really distinguish itself in the effort to produce Mideast peace?
Well, it's a relief to the administration officials who were thinking about North Korea just a few days ago. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another for them. They're trying to get their facts straight at this point. I don't think they have a clear, and what they've said, as you mentioned at the opening, is they haven't yet said anything, really. They've said they're waiting to ascertain the facts. But what I think will really be important here is the narrative. And was this an act of war? Were there war supplies on this ship? And it will be very interesting to see what the administration says over the next few days.
But if we're watching these pictures of demonstrations taking place around the world, there's also the question whether or not the contents of that ship were more than wheelchairs and prefabricated housing. There's also the question of whether this is a legitimate blockade of Gaza. Here, these were ships that were in international waters, and regardless of the question of who fired the first shot, there's an open question as to whether Israel was within the boundary of law in boarding that ship in the first place.
That's correct, and that's where the administration is going to have to make a decision about what they say, that they haven't made so far. The optics are obviously bad, but it'll be interesting to see what they say. And let's not forget, he's going to be going to Indonesia in a couple of weeks, the president is, and giving something of a reprise of his Cairo speech from a year and a half ago. So,
and yet, among the Muslim world, there's been a lot of anger that his response has been tepid.
That's exactly right, and it's going to be an interesting one to watch in the next couple of days. Kornblut from the Washington Post, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.